How are you, learners? This is another time that we are continuing with the lesson that we began, the lesson on the syndrome of rejection. It's a very important lesson because everybody feels rejected. Everybody. The difference is the degree. Remember the saying of Charles Solomon that there are two types of people in the world. One are those who are rejected. Two are those who are rejected more. In other words, everybody is rejected. So it's important for you to find out in which area have I suffered rejection, because it hampers your progress towards spiritual maturity, which is the goal of our counseling, bringing you to spiritual maturity or to Christ-likeness. Remember, as we talked about rejection, we also said that the definition of rejection is absence of meaningful love. Love is there, but you don't sense it, so it is not meaningful. So the love it can also be absent. It's not just not there at all. And that is the definition of rejection. It leads us to the two types, the examples rather, of rejection. The example of rejection is, one, there can be an inability to receive love. Love is present, but you have no way of receiving it because you received love, and with the love you received rejection. So every time love comes around you, you fear that rejection is following, so you'd rather not receive it. People have loved you and slapped you, so you no longer want their love or anybody else's love because you think after love is a slap. It's registered in you, it's programmed in you. And the inability also to give love. You cannot give. It was never given to you, so you have nothing to give. So you become a kind of person who cannot receive love nor give love. An example of inability to receive love or give love. Say there is a dog, and this dog strays into a neighbor's compound, and then the neighbor beats it, and it runs away, and it doesn't get the right direction. On the road, it's almost crushed by a car, and has just to escape narrowly, then runs into a compound, and in this compound, the owner of the compound meets it with a stick, drives it away. Then runs into another compound, and there's a boy who always wanted a dog just like that and says, finally, I found the dog I wanted. Goes for it. How does the dog react? Based on the previous experiences, this is another one who wants to abuse me. So it will run away. So you have no ability to receive love. You suffer rejection. It's therefore important to put the subject of rejection in perspective so that you understand how it could have infiltrated your life. We talked about two types of rejection. We talked about overt rejection. You are obviously rejected. It could be in words, you are worthless, you are useless. It could be in actions, you are physically beaten or sexually abused. They value your body but not your person. Now, that is obvious rejection. There can also be covert rejection. Covert rejection is you are rejected in a way that it looks like you are being loved. An example is if you are growing up and they do everything for you. We call that overprotection. You are overprotected. They will wash you, they'll wash your clothes, they will drive you to school in a Mercedes Benz. Then a time comes when you are no longer with them. The parents could be, or guardians. You are in a high school and you are alone, you are boarding there. You never learned to wash clothes, never learned to bathe yourself, never learned to do anything for yourself. Now you are called upon to do those things. You are unable. You now begin to realize the love that you are given was not love at all. It was rejection. Or whenever you wanted something, for a birthday, say, and you are given, they bring you a nice pen they have bought from the shop for, let's say, 300 shillings. Nice pen. You throw it away because you don't want that. You want a camera, nice camera. And then because they love you, they'll buy the camera for you. Yeah? And then you are used to that kind of love. Then you reach a place where that love cannot be obtained from the new environment in which you are. You begin to feel, I was rejected, though it looked like love. So rejection, we have several examples here of types of rejection, the overt and the covert. For you to see, just understand these ones, then you can ask yourself, does mine fall there? Even if it doesn't fall here, you will be able from this to tell where you were subjected to rejection in the environment. Let's look at the overt rejection. First example, verbal abuse. Proverbs 18 verse 21. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those that love it will eat the fruit thereof. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. You can speak life to somebody, you can also speak death in the life of a person. Because when the person believes what you are saying, if it's negative, it's death. If it is positive, it's life. So when it's verbal abuse, it's negative words you are dishing out to somebody else. And when they believe them, the bottom line is believing. When you believe, what hurts you is not what people say, but you are believing what they say. So that is an example of verbal abuse in the Bible. Now, there is also covert love related to this verbal abuse, which is unverbalized love. You love a child, you do everything for the child, you give gifts to the child, you give time to the child, you give service to the child, but you never speak a word of love. I love you, you are good, thank you for being there as a member of as my child. You have no words of love. Unverbalized love amounts to rejection, covert rejection. Especially when a child visits another home and finds there's a lot of verbal love and there's absence of verbal love in the home. You are quiet about the love that you have for your child. Another example is physical abuse, an example of overt rejection. Physical abuse. You physically abuse your child. That means you dish out not discipline, because there's an amount of discipline that the Bible allows, but there is punishment. You are punishing the child because you want to get rid of your anger. When you feel good after beating the child is when you now stop. Now that one is physical abuse. An example is King Saul when he threw the spear at his son Jonathan, because Jonathan was defending David. That was physical abuse. Jonathan felt rejected of the father, and he left the home that day, came back later on, but the relationship between them was never the same. So one can be physically abused. Maybe you too could have been physically abused, brought up by an overly strict and punitive parent. Now that can spell rejection in your life. And you may find you are doing it to your children, or you are not disciplining them because you don't want to be like your dad. Or you are overdoing it because that's the only way you know. Right, so that's physical abuse. And there is also no tactile love for an example of covert rejection. Now, physical abuse is physically touching somebody the wrong way, either with a fist or some other object. Now, tactile love means touch. No tactile love means no touch. This child is never hugged all his life. This child is never even just patted on the back. Thank you. Well done. Never. This child feels like they want it, but it's not there. Yeah, it spells out no love at all, covert rejection. I am rejected. I am not worthy of my father's or my mother's hug. And this is the kind of child who, when they get a hug out there, when they are, let's say, they are in their teenage, you will not, they will feel like this is what I've been looking for all the time. And it can affect their lives from their own. So it's important that a parent particularly shows tactile love, touch. Remember, we will look at another case later on, but I can mention it now, the case of the child who is incubated. The one who goes home, if there are two, the one who goes home has all the tactile love, and they grow up very healthy. The one who doesn't have any tactile love doesn't grow up healthy. Later on in life, you'll find this one is a lonely one. And the one who had tactile life is a social one, doing well in school, busy in sports and things like that, outgoing. And the other one is reserved. Why? Rejection. One is feeling rejection, lack of tactile love. Now, the other case of overt rejection is sexual abuse. You remember the case of Tamar in the book of 2 Samuel? Tamar was defiled by her half-brother, Amnon. And it was so terrible because she fell into rejection immediately. Now, this one is a trauma. Traumas bring rejection immediately. There is that staying in an environment of abuse, you receive the rejection in bits. But a trauma just impacts you with the rejection. So she was impacted with the rejection, and she tore her clothes. She stayed with her brother, Absalom, who too was affected by that. The whole family was affected by the abuse of Tamar. She had a low opinion of herself from there on. And she felt like, I'm not a virgin, I'm not good enough. Now, the other case of covert rejection that could be, that is number 3, is gender preference. This gender preference is where a father or a mother, a parent, wants to have a son and gets a daughter instead, or wants to have a daughter and gets a son instead. Then you treat this child as if your gender, you are right, but your gender is wrong. I wanted a boy. What will happen to the girl? She'll begin to behave like a boy, what they call tomboys. What will happen to the boy? He'll begin to behave like a girl, what they call sissies. And a boy may end up not even knowing their gender and become gay because of things like that, or become lesbian. So that reminds me also, in the case of physical abuse, it could be a parent abusing another parent. When a parent abuses another parent, the girl child, if the father is the one oppressing the boy, the mother, she may also reject her gender and can end up also in that lifestyle because she has rejected her gender. If it's the mother mistreating the father, the boy child can also reject the mother's gender. And if he marries, he's likely to mistreat the wife. Right, so sexual abuse, gender preference. Now, when a child's gender is rejected, it spells rejection, and it will be seen in their behavior and feelings later on in life. The other case is spiritual abuse. Now, spiritual abuse is like the case of the Pharisees, who kept unreasonable standards for their disciples. Now, pastors can do likewise. You can have expectations, unreasonable expectations of your church members, and that can also spell rejection in them. For example, threats. If they don't give as you want them to give, they're not giving that as they should now, and you keep telling them that they are not giving enough, they are not tithing enough. Okay, if they skip tithing, and again you speak about it with anger, like they have really offended God and God cannot love them, it spells spiritual abuse. Or verbally, you verbalize when somebody has done something wrong, you verbalize curses upon that person. That is spiritual abuse. And a person who is spiritually abused grows struggling to please you, struggling to please God. Now, therefore, it's important for us to find out for ourselves, did I grow up in an abusive church, an abusive spiritual environment? For example, even where you are expected to dress up a particular way, you have to dress up a particular way. You must always be in a suit, or you must have your dress below the ankle. Now, those kind of things will spell in the child rejection. I'm not an advocate of anything that is immodest, but I'm not talking of immodest dressing. I'm simply talking of exaggerated dressing. It can also spell rejection for the child. That is not loving the person as they are. Now, so that is spiritual abuse. And then there can also be no spiritual guidance. That is covert rejection, no spiritual guidance. You never take your child to church. You only take him to the swimming pool on Sunday morning, and there's no Bible study in the home. There's just a big television screen. You can choose channels just once in a while. You can watch a sermon. That is no spiritual guidance. And where there is no spiritual guidance, later on in life, when the children will realize, I am not enough in myself to confront the issues of life. I need a higher power. And then they bump onto God. They will realize, I was rejected. I was never given spiritual guidance. As much as I was given everything else, I missed this one. So it will spell rejection for that child. No spiritual guidance for the child. No family devotion, even if you all go to church. But there's no family devotion. It will spell no spiritual guidance, and hence covert rejection. Then we have favoritism in the family. Favoritism. Now, Jacob exhibited favoritism because he chose Joseph as his best, and the others didn't like it, and they didn't like him. They even planned to do away with him. You know the whole story. And maybe, coming back to yourself, you may have grown up in a home where there was favoritism. Maybe you are the favored one, or you are the one not favored. It spelled rejection for those not favored. It spelled rejection even for the one favored, because life was made easy for them. When others went to till the land, they remained at home. When others were doing their homework on their own, this one was assisted. When others were washing their clothes, these ones had their clothes washed by these others. Now that kind of love is overt rejection for those ones who see you have a favorite as a parent, and they grow up feeling that they were not loved. Then there's unfavorable comparison. Unfavorable comparison is common in schools, it's common in families, where your eldest brother performed, and now he becomes a standard for everybody else. Why can't you be like your elder brother? Why can't you do this like your elder brother does it? And now you feel like I'm not enough. I cannot, and you cannot be somebody else. You're not accepted the way you are. Maybe he was good in sports, and you're good in something else. So the parent hasn't tried to find out what are you good in. So you feel rejection because of unfavorable comparison. And if you go to a school where your senior brother was, and he excelled in everything, or your senior sister, they excelled in this and that and the other, and here you are not really given to those other things that they excelled in, and you are average in your performance in class, and these ones were excellent. They'll keep referring to it and saying, you are not like your brother so-and-so, you're not like your sister so-and-so. That spells rejection for the child. So if you ever were subjected to a thing like that, and you feel like you can even fear education, you can even fear going to class, you can even drop out because of that rejection. Now the other case here is the case of ejection from home. There are people who are ejected from their homes. An example is Jephthah in Judges 11, verse 1 to 3. Jephthah was thrown out of the home because his father had got him from the mother, but never married her. So he was brought home to a stepmother who had her own children, and these children were mistreating him until the day they chased him out of the home. The father did not react to it. The stepmother could have encouraged it. Even these things happen in homes where there are step parents. It can bring rejection. I'm not saying every step parent does mistreat their stepchildren, but a lot of them do it. So if you could have been subjected to rejection and finally ejection from the home, that was covert rejection. And in the other case, we are thinking of adoption. Adoption is where a child is removed from the environment of the nuclear family. This is my mom, this is my dad, this is my brother, this is my sister. Then you are taken to your uncle's place at a very tender age. That can amount to rejection because you are wondering, okay, I'm here, I am a second-rate child. Because even when this lady refers to me, she doesn't say my son. She says, how are you son of so-and-so? Now, and then the treatment can also be singling me out. Because I'm not, then you are wondering, why am I the one who was brought here and my brother and sister were left to the other side? Now, so you feel rejection and it can follow you into your future life. And you may find your feelings, your behavior is not normal to what is expected of you from God's point of view. And you wonder, how did I end up this way? So that issue of adoption can be looked into where there is bizarre behavior. It can be a result of adoption. Now, here's another case of an unwanted child. An unwanted child, his parents decide we shall have 4 children. And then they get 4. Then they say full stop. Then after 10 years, 15 years, you come up. You are born. They didn't want you, but somehow you just came. And sometimes you hear them talk about it. They are saying this one was unwanted. This one, I don't know why he came about. It will spell rejection to you. Oh, so I was unwanted. So I was unexpected. Now, you feel like unwanted wherever you go. You feel like unwanted even when you are in marriage. Any slight remark goes back to. Slight remark from your spouse goes back to the feeling I was always unwanted. Slight remark from somebody in school goes back to that. So you can feel, you can have a sense of being unwanted all your life. Therefore, if you ever happen to be like that, it's good to examine and see how you can come to your freedom. Now, there's another case here in the case of covert rejection. The case of an only child. It can be the case of you are an only child. If you are an only child, you are bound to receive overprotection. And overprotection makes you not feel like human enough. Because you can't wash your clothes, they do it for you because they're afraid you may be hurt. Yeah? You can't. I mean, if you go to school, they must escort you and make sure you are entering the gate. You can't just go on your own and others are going on their own. You are not treated like you can do anything. And so you grow up not knowing you can do anything. And time comes when you are alone and a lot is expected of you and you realize there is no input from which to draw to live a normal human life. So being an only child doesn't necessarily mean you will be rejected, because if parents are wise, they'll know how to bring you up. They'll know that they should not overprotect you. So being an only child, you can and see, where do I fall? You may fall there, but how are you brought up? I'm not saying every only child has a problem. Then we have a broken family. A broken family speaks of divorce. Parents go one way, and the other goes one way. And you may remain with one parent. And this parent may remarry. So you have a stepfather or a stepmother. And when they remarry like that, and you're in a foreign, and this step-parent has her own children, and you're not part of them, the treatment is different. Rejection is likely to arise in that state of affairs. And so you need to examine yourself. Very many people have come from those backgrounds, and they have affected them so that their lives are less than where they should operate at. So to operate optimally, deal with the rejection that has come your way through having come from a broken home. Some did not even end up with any parent. Others ended up with with uncle, then another auntie, then somebody else. And so you lived in several homes till you lost a sense of belonging. So it's very important to understand what could be the cause of my not having a sense of belonging. What is the cause of my feeling rejection? It could come from such a background. Now we also have a dysfunctional family. They don't separate, but there is no harmony in that family. That will bring insecurity to the child. The parents are always fighting. And you as children maybe are the ones that are trying to bring peace. And they speak it out. If it wasn't for these children, I would have left you. Now that kind of environment also spells rejection for the child. It's very important for you to understand, did I come from a dysfunctional family? Now, the last two we shall deal with are performance-based acceptance. You are accepted not as a person. Your person is rejected, but your performance is accepted. When you close school and you are coming from boarding school and you come home and you see your dad and you run into the gate and you are very happy, you want to greet him, and then you say, hi dad, I've just come, we have closed school, I'll be here for 1 month. He didn't even hear what you said. All he wants to see is your report card. Can I see your report card? That is his greeting. Now, and it's always like that. It's just about your report. How did you perform? And then in the home, how do you perform in the home? You are loved on the basis of your performance, but not loved as a person. That's quite unlike the love of God. The love of God is unconditional love. He loves you just the way you are and draws you from where you are, the negative side, to where you should be. Now, so if you are loved on the basis of your performance, or maybe you are a performer. If you are a performer, then you are loved because you are a performer. Now, if you are not a performer, then you are not loved because you are not a performer. It reflects on you as rejection. Because so they just love me because I perform. Or so they don't love me because I don't perform. And that can appear in your life. And you can be very sensitive to criticism. Yeah, when what you do is criticized, you become very sensitive and even angry. And you can become perfectionistic if you are a performer. And you can become careless if you're not a performer. Because there are those who try to perform and cannot make it. So they become, they reject themselves and can now turn to negative behavior. Now we have overprotection. You can see that they interlock. All these ways of rejection, they interlock. Overprotection is where you are overprotected, particularly you are the only child or a lastborn or a firstborn, a beloved firstborn, right? Or some child in the middle, but is overprotected, like Joseph was overprotected. And in the home of Isaac, Jacob was protected by the mother and Esau by the father. Now that kind of overprotection also denies you the chance to grow because your potentials are suppressed because everything is done for you. Later on in life, when you're alone, you grow up realizing, I am not capable of doing so many things. Not because you are incapable, but you are capable. And yet, you are not allowed space to express your capability. Now, in that way, you become a child who senses rejection. When you are employed and you are overprotected, you went through the school, you learned everything about the job, you are very good at the job, but when you are doing the job, you don't feel capable. You are given tasks. You go through and do very well, but every time you are starting up a task, you start with the feeling, I'm not able. So, brethren, this is very important for you to examine yourself and see, could there be an area of rejection? I've listed just a few, just 9 or just 18 examples of overt and covert rejection types. But there are as many as there are people. So if you examine yourself based on these examples, what could have brought rejection in my life? Where was I denied to receive acceptance? Because it is a burning need in every human being. We have come to the end of the lesson, so I can just recap so that we can understand properly what rejection is. I said rejection can be overt, and that means it's obvious. People reject you and they're obviously rejecting you, and it's clear to you it's rejection. And then covert. Covert rejection is subtle. You are not aware that you are being rejected, but it amounts to rejection. It can look like love, but it's not love. It can be like overprotection, for example. It looks like it's love, but it's rejection. So remember, overt rejection is obvious rejection. Covert rejection is hidden or subtle rejection, but it amounts to rejection. So I'll give you an exercise after you have come to the end so that you'll be able to do it. I will read it to you so that you'll be able to do it, and we can look at it next time. The first is, give 5 examples of moments in your life when you felt rejected. I'll repeat it. Number 1, give 5 examples of moments in your life when you felt rejected. Number 2, give 5 examples of rejection that you witnessed in other people's lives. I'll repeat it. Number 2, give 5 examples of rejection that you have witnessed in other people's lives. Thank you. God bless you.